Hey guys, it's lovely to have your company back here on my Hunkydory Crafts YouTube channel, where on this tutorial what we're going to do, and this is actually something that really has been requested, and that is this. Now you'll have seen me do this with the beer bottle alphabets, and I created this on Hobbymaker, and it was a couple of weeks ago, and I say a couple of weeks ago, depends on whenever you are watching this tutorial here, and a lot of you wanted the instructions, so I'm going to put the picture of the instructions up, but I thought, you know what we'll do as well is we'll actually do the tutorial of it. Of course, at the moment everything we're doing at the current time period is black and white before we go into future tutorials where we'll actually physically decorate things as well. So this one here is what we're going to be making. So before we crack on, thank you so much to everyone that still continues to subscribe, that gives me the thumbs up, and for those that do hit that bell to be notified whenever a new tutorial goes up live, it is really appreciated. And then you'll get an alert for well, just exactly that, tutorial goes live like this one. So let's delve in up above and have a look, see what we're going to do. So let's go back once again just to show you from the front. So unlike my original sample, which is in the office, the original sample has some seed packets inside, and it also has some hook and loop on the front, which we will do. Everything that I'm using, stock dependent, I'll put in the descriptions. I often get asked what are the hook and loops that I use. Shock horror, they're from Stix2. Mine's is well used, battered and bruised, but I will put the link in the description. We've got new packaging now. It's like white colour, white and blue, so that'll go within the description. Now what I have already done is these insert bits here where you can pop the little seed packets or whatever it is that you want. You need 6 of them. So I've already done 5. And we're going to do the other one. So all that you need to do is do what I'm going to do here, but repeat it another 5 times. So let's go in with our cardstock here. Now, you will actually get 2 of these from 1 piece of A4 cardstock. So you're only actually going to need 3 A4 white card, or whatever colour you're using, to create the 6 of these ones here. So let's go in with your chosen medium to cut. I'm going in with our large guillotine, of course. You can see you do get the 2 of them from that one sheet. So 8 1/4, and then let's turn that around, and then let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 eighths. That if we add that one in, we're 5 7/8. So you've got the 2 of them from that one sheet. There we go. That is my maths letting me down again. Although it is not my strong point, because I don't like maths. So what we're going to do is let's bring in our scoreboard, and let's turn it around to the inches. Now this project, this wasn't my idea, wasn't my concoction or anything like that. I seen the written instructions had come up on it's either Google or Yahoo, something like that, and I thought, oh, that looks quite cool. So I worked along the actual instructions to see how to create it. So we're going to go in here. So what we're going to do is let's turn that so we've got that full length here, and we're going to then score at 4 inch, lightly and a few times as always, and then we're going to come right to the end here and we're going to score at 8 inch. So we're going to have like a little 1/4 of an inch glue tab. So that's 4 inch and then 8 inch. Turn that around. And then what we're going to do is we're going to then score at 5 3/8. So we're going to go 5 and then 1, 2, 3, and then score like so. And then turn that around. And then what we can do is then we can then just turn that around, and then we're going to give that a nice fold over, and then we're going to give it a burnish. So we're going to burnish that over, and then we can do the same within that middle one. Then what we're going to do is take our scissors, and then just where we've got this join, we're going to do like a little kind of triangle. So you can see that we've got that little score line. So we're just going to create just a little triangle, like so. And then this little rectangle here, what we're going to do is chop that out. So we're just going to go at a slight angle, turn it around, go at a slight angle, just so that we're cutting in. And then we're going to be left with that. And you're going to do that with all 5 of them. And then what we're going to do is these 2 here, we're going to add our adhesive. So you can use your wet glue if you want. For this, I'm going to use my red liner tape. So that is then going to be folded inwards. So let's turn that around. It just makes it easier for myself to pop my tape on. And I'm using my 6mm for this one. And then we're going to turn that one around. And then if you're ever using a tape that's thinner than the actual tab, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you go up to the score line, because that is where the card's going to come into contact, which I'll show you in a second. And then we're just going to give that a burnish down again, like so. And then what I'm going to do is let's take that one off. And then we're going to take that one off. I'm going to turn that one around. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to then fold that over. So I've got my little bit of a join that's already now stuck down. You're going to leave this tab in place because that's what's going to create the hinge. And then all that I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold that one over like so into place. And then we can give that a burnish, like so. And then we've got what's going to be the start of our tab. Now here, what I'm going to do is this side we've kind of got that smooth edge all the way down. Here we've got that kind of like butt edge. That's where I'm going to put my tape. So for this one I want that full edge to edge. So I'm going to go in with my 12mm red liner tape. And let's just finish that one up. And the reason that's 6mm in width tape, I explained how I go right to that score line, is because then that way the tape comes into contact right up against that base. So ignore this line of tape here, but where you've got that section there that attaches, if I were to put that little 6mm tape towards that other end of the tab, what you would do is you'd be able to then just open and prise this little section up. So always put your tape close to the actual score line. And then we're going to give that one a burnish. And then that's what's going to create the hinge for our little seed packets or whatever you want to pop inside. Now what I'm going to do is if you've got a circle punch, you can use a circle punch, pop that in, create the circle. I don't. But even if I did, I would still use my nesting dies, because for myself, what I'm able to do then is to create a little bit of a frame. So I'm going to go in with 2 of my circle nesting dies, which are the straight edge nesting dies being the circle. So the 2 that I'm going to go into is, so the largest one of the 2 that I'm using is 1 3/4. So it's 1 3/4, and then this one is the next size down, which is then going to be 1 1/2. So then what we're going to do is we are then going to take the largest of the 2, set that out the way, and then we're going to bring in that smallest. We're going to take our tape, and then you can use a little pencil mark if you want to find the centre. But what I do is I just go in and use my glass mat. So what I do is, I know this is 4 inches here. Move this up to make it a little bit easier. Maybe we'll see it. So I'm going to come right close. This is just how I do it. Of course, if you've got your ruler, you can use your ruler. So I know here I'm bang centre, I'm in that 4 inch. So my 2 inch is the centre. And then all that I'm doing here is the edges of the circle. I'm also just going to line up with 2 of the grids on my glass mat, just so that I know, yep, I'm in the centre here. But what I also do is I always align it as well, just with whatever that nearest grid is. So then that way I know that I'm in the centre. I can tape that one down. And then that's going to easily cut through the 2 layers. So let me just move that back into place, like so, and then bring in your chosen die cutting machine. So this one, because of the width, I need, of course, a wider die cutting machine. So if I run that through, and I don't need to go all the way through because it's only the top that I'm cutting. Move all that out the way. I need to stop putting this plate underneath because I keep thinking I'm losing it, and I'm not. It's there at the bottom all the time. So if I take that away, we've now got that little half aperture that we can take the seed packets out. But anything like that, if you know me, you know I like to frame stuff. So, a little bit of our black card, and I just want to make sure that I've got enough for that largest circle, and I need 2. Now, because we've got that bang centre in the middle, there is a good chance that we could create one circle frame, and we can use this one for the front and the back. I'll explain that in a minute, but just in case I've not quite got it central, I'm just going to do 2 just to be on the safe side. And if that made no sense, I'll explain as I'm showing you. So let's run that one through. So this can just go through our small machine. So take that one. And then we're going to do the same here. So I'm just going to line them both up just to make sure that I've got that central within each die to create that nice frame. So let's move that out the way. And now we've got that. So what I was saying before, we may actually get away with just one by sticking that on and then snipping it off and then using the other half on the back. But just in case I've not quite got that depth just right, the last thing I want is to pop that onto there, snip it, and it's actually not quite as deep as I need for that side. So just to be on the safe side, I've cut 2. So we're going to go in with our wet glue here, and then I'm just going to add just a little bit round that outer edge. You can, if you want to, add the glue on the back, but I do it here because then I'm only adding the glue where I need it to go. So if I press that down and let that grab for a moment or 2. So just let that grab, just so that it does, well, exactly that, grabs. And then what we could do is we can then snip that off. Now, would I have enough? Oh, I would. Look at that. That would have been absolutely bang on. I didn't need to do a second one. But you know what? Hey ho. We've done it anyway. So we're just going to add that little bit of glue on. And then let's press that one in. We're just going to line that up just with that inner edge of that half circle in the white card. Press that one down. If I did have any excess, I would trim that, but I don't need to. And then there we go. Let's just open that up. So we've now got our little pocket with our little half circle aperture ready to, and in actual, see, look at that, see, you can, that isn't going to work because you could still see, so obviously my half circle wasn't perfect, because when you turned it around you could still see some of that black card, which meant if I nudged it into place, it wouldn't be flush along the top. So let's bring in that one, press. Let's have a look. Yep, I can't see any black, which means I know I'm spot on this time. And then let's snip that off, press that down, and then there we go. We've now got our half circle, which if we bring in the other one, that's us now got our 6 of them, which are exactly the same. So let's then go into our next part here. Let's take that and let's bring in some of our card. So this is also something that we're going to get to from the one sheet. So whoever did design and come up with this concept, brilliant being able to get multiples from the one sheet. So I'm just going to come out that a little bit more. So what we're going to do here is, this is going to be 11 1/4. 11 1/4 by 4 1/8. So we're going to go 4 1/8, and then if I line that one up, pretty much bang on, 4 1/8. What I'm going to do while we're here, let's actually take that bit that I didn't quite measure perfectly well earlier on, and then we're going to cut this one. So we're going to cut this one to 4 7/8. So let's go, no it's not, 4 1/8. Yes I am. So 4, so that's 4 1/7, he says. 4 1/7. Let's turn that one around. 5 1/2. Turn it around. 4 1/8, because that will then match that. Perfect, that's it. So we're going to take that second piece here. So that, just to reiterate, 5 1/2 inches by 4 1/8. Move all that out the way, move that out the way, bring in our scoreboard. Now here, we are going to then score at 3 1/2. So we're going to go 3 1/2 and then 9 1/2 here. Now we're going to do exactly the same on this one. So we're going to do 3 1/2 by 9 1/2. Now on this one, what we're going to do is we're going to chop off that little rectangle. I just find it easier to do both pieces the same and then tell you to trim that, other than give you the measurement for this one and where to score, give you the measurement of that one and where to score. It's just as easier, I feel, to do it that way. So we're going to trim off that rectangle, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take that other piece that I've just done a moment ago, that's 5 1/2 by 4 1/8, and then I'm going to turn that so it's lengthways, and then I'm going to score at 3 1/2, like so. Take that out the way. I'm going to move that out the way for now, and then these ones, what we can do is we can then score and burnish. Same with this one here, and then same with this one here. So these two, because they're both exactly the same, that's going to be the base, and what it's also going to be is give you stability. So because we want extra stability, I'm going to go in with my white glue. So whether it's Hunkydory's or whether it is Stix2, it might be in other brands. I don't know how good other brands are because I've never used them. The only two I've ever used is Stix2 and Hunkydory. Correct myself, I have occasionally used Collal white glue, and only occasionally. You'll never see me use it that often because I'm not a big fan of the Collal white glue. So let's press that one down, and then this is where it's going to start to come together. Now you might want to make like a little parcel, and you can keep it like that to create that little teepee effect, but the reason that we've gone in with this one is because what that one's going to do, that's going to join there, that's going to, so we're going to stick that onto there, and that's what's going to give us that little lift at the front where we're going to add the hook and loop. So we're going to do that here. So we're going to add our glue. If you don't have your white glue or you're not a fan of white glue, I would highly recommend your red liner tape for this. But if you don't have either, tissue tape, like double-sided tape, it will work. You just want to make sure it's nice and strong. So let's press that one down, like so. What I'm going to do is I'm going to matte and layer these in black before we do this base. Now these are all really simple. I'll show you the finished example again at the end, but you can matte and layer these as and how you want with different papers and that you want. So let's take my guillotine. So that one there, I'll need 4 because 1, 2, 3 and then 4. So I'm going to remind myself, so that's 6 by 4 1/8. So let's do 6 by 4 1/8. So we're going to, you don't have to do it this way, I'm just doing it just to show you. So if we cut it exactly to the size, so that's it. And then it's up to you how far you come down. So I'm not going to quite go 1/4 of an inch down. Let's try 3 notches. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. There we go. Happy with that. So we're going to repeat that one. We're going to get enough out of that one. So that ended up being 1 notch before 4. And then that turned out to be 3 notches before 6. And then let's do another. So what did I say? 1 notch, so I'll need to go that way to get it out the card. 3 notches before 6. 1 notch before 4. Do the same again. 1 notch before 4. 3 before 6. So that's going to give me on my mats and layers, whether you're using pattern paper, whether you are using your double-sided papers, card, whatever it is. I don't need to worry about the base because you're not going to see the base because you've got those little hinge tabs that are going to go into place there. So I've done that one, done that one, done that one, done that one. So we're going to do this one here. So that is 3.5 and it'll also be 4.1. So let's do the same. 1 before 4. And then let's go to 3.5 and then we'll go down 3 notches. 1, 2, 3. Because we went down 3 from the 6. If all these notches and that are confusing you, simply cut your cardstock to that same size and then just trim it that little bit more to make it easier for yourself. So 3 notches before 3.5, and then the last one for this one is that one. So that's going to be the same. It's going to be 4 and 1 notch, and that is 2 inches. So let's take this one. So 1 notch before 4, and then we're going to go 3 notches before 2, and that should be all my mats and layers. Incidentally, if you are someone that came up with this idea, or you know the person that came up with this idea, oh, I need another one because I need the opposite side, please do let me know. Absolutely no way am I want to take credit for something that wasn't my idea. So if it was yours, or you do know whose it was, please do point them in this direction, or let me know who they are, or let me know who you are. It'll always be nice. So let's work our way round. Mats and layers, usually when I've got time, I'll always use my double-sided tape. And in actual fact, I don't know why I'm saying when I've got time, because I've got time. So let's do that. Let's just go with my tape. Sometimes I can be just as quick with my tape than my wet glues. But because this is only creating that mat in a layer, it's going to add extra stability with thickness on the sides, but it's not actually holding anything in place. That it's a reason as to why I won't always necessarily use a wet glue for something like this. So let's go on with the next few. You might want to skip this bit, you're more than welcome, because now that all that I'm doing is sticking the mats and layers on. So you might want to skip a couple of minutes until we get to the point where I'm adding that last bit on. That's up to yourself. I know lots of you like to watch it all, just so that you don't miss anything. Let's pop that on. And there is occasion, although most of it goes out unedited, because the new opening and end to them, I actually do separate. I don't attach it to the videos while I'm filming them. I'll do it afterwards. That there may be the odd thing that I'll clip out, but it's never anything important. And also, what's also important to say is I never edit out a mistake. If I make a mistake, I'll always leave it in, because that's how we all learn. And I'm not perfect. And that's always, I always found, as I was working my way up in the industry, and you know, I still learn now on a daily basis, but it was always a comfort to see those that are printing shows or on social making mistakes, because it's like, oh, I'm human. We all make the mistakes. I'm just going to put my tape on these few together. Like so. And then let's bring in that last one. Right, let's pop those bits on. Now, of course, that's going to be the base, so we don't need to put anything on it. No harm if you do, but remember, you're going to have the layers from the hinges, which will also create extra stability. So let's pop that on, turn it around, and then we're going to add the last few. So let's bring all these into place. And we position that one in to there, and then we're going to add that in. So for something, a project at first that looks quite complex, it really quite is repetitive. You've got the inside packs where you've got 6 of them. It's all exactly the same. You do one and then you do all remaining 5 the same, and then these layers are a lot of just mats and layers until you come to do the decoration. So the reason we've got that bit there is to create that overhang. Now you could have it longer if you want it could be shorter if you want, you could go at a point if you want, that's entirely up to yourself. But you can see now that we've got the actual seed pack holder, gift holder starting to come into play. And then what we're going to do is let's bring in our packs. So let's bring these ones in, and then we're going to add our tape. So we've got the tape facing me. So what I like to do is I like to turn it around, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure, because it's, remember that's 4.1 and that's 4, so you're going to have just a tiny little gap in between. But what I'm doing is I'm just wanting to make sure that's kind of flush against the edge. Press down. And then there's our first one. Again, I'm just want to make sure that we're all aligned. And then we're going to take that next one, and then we're going to do the same, but this time, instead of against the hinge of the card, it's the hinge of our last pocket. So I'm not pressing down fully to commit to the stick. I'm just eyeballing it up. I want to make sure that it's straight, which it is, and then when it is, press down, move back, press down, and then we can go into the next ones. And then we're going to, in actual fact, you could do it this way as well. Just lay it completely flat. And you just want to make sure that you're running parallel, you're up against that last seam, press, move back, and then you can keep going with the last ones. So let's bring that in. If you want that wiggle room, or you want that little bit more comfort in knowing you can move it, you could use your wet glue. For this, I would highly, highly recommend your red liner tape or your wet glue. Let's go in with that one. Again, we can lay it flat, make sure we're running parallel. We're up against, because the thing is then, if you're running parallel from the top and the bottom each time, it means then of course you're going to be running flush each time as well, which is what you want. And then we can come in here, let's go into there, press down, and then there we go. And in actual fact, if you wanted to, you could even get a 7th in there if you wanted to. But you can see the reason, in case you get to that end, like I nearly question myself and go, oh, I've got a bit of a gap there. That's obviously just to take into account you've got the same gap at the first and same gap at the end. So it's just giving you that symmetrical. But you could, if you wanted to, easily get a 7th in there. It's just, if you're like me and you like symmetry and you like things that are symmetrical, it ain't going to work out like that. But the choice is yours. There's no right or there's no wrong. But comfortably sits the 6 of them, and you could get a 7th if you wanted to. And then you can fold that one over, and then you can see now where we've got the hinges of the actual seed packets, or whatever packets that you want. And then all that we need to do is then let's come in with our hook and loops, positive and negatives. And then I'm going to, let's take the soft side. Now what I would do here, now you could measure if you want, so you're getting them kind of in the same place, although it's not essential. When you've got something with hook and loops and you're going to be opening and closing them, once again, best friend I would say is your tacky glue. So I'm going to position this within my glass mat just so that I can kind of get roughly the same position, and then I'm going to do a dot of the white glue, and then we can pop that one on there. Now obviously let this dry before you start opening and closing it, but the more you open and close it, the more that's going to come away. It doesn't matter how incredibly strong the adhesive is, which in my opinion, Stix2 as an adhesive company are one of the strongest, if not the strongest, the best adhesive brand, full stop. But still, you're going to have that wear and tear of the opening, nature of the beast, when you've got fibrous cardstock. So if you add a bit of your tacky glue underneath, which is spreading outwards, dries solid, it dries into that layer of the positive of the hook and loop into the layer of the cardstock, makes it incredibly strong and then robust. And then all that you're going to do to get it in the exact same place, take the negative, pop that on into place, and pop that one on into place. And then before I close this, because when I close this with my glue, I'm not going to open it again, otherwise it'll prise apart. So before I stick this down, there is how it looks. Of course, in black and white form. I will show you the finished one that I've got. And then just to get that into that right place, let's do the same again. Little bit of tacky glue. You don't need much because it's going to spread out. And then I'm just going to lift that one up. What I like to do is just go into the hinge so I know I'm getting it in the right place. Fold that one over. I'm going to press that down, and then I'm going to let the glue do its job and let it dry completely before I even attempt to lift this open. Because if I do that now, it's just going to prise away from the cardstock because the glue's still wet. But then you can see there, we've now got the same as to what we've done and decorated here. The only difference on this one I've not done is added the hook and loop. Let's bring that into there. Let's move that one out the way for a second. And then there we go. Open it up, and then you can see you've then got whatever you want you can pop inside. What I will just show you, although it's straightforward, I will just show you this. The handles, I'm going to use black because that's what I've been using. But you can use whatever colour that you want. And then what I'm going to do, that is, I'm just going to make sure that's exactly at 1/4 inch, which it is. So I'm going to come down 1/2 inch and then another 1/2 inch. So it's the length of A4 and they're both 1/2 inch strips. Take my trusted glue, like so. And then you don't need much. I know I've talked about this in previous shows. So whether you're using a Hunkydory white glue, whether you're using Stix2's glue, white glue, there is water content in it, there has to be, but there's not as much as your cheap glue, so therefore you don't need a lot, because you've got more glue than you do have water. And there we go, so let's just press that into place. I just want to make sure it's all aligned perfectly. And then we're just going to press that down. Now I'm just going to check, because I know this isn't the full length of A4. So I'm just going to roughly, so it's round about there. So let's see roughly what that measurement was, because I've not wrote it down. So that would have been, so that actually, now I remember, I cut that down the side of A4. My original one, what I've done is I've gone along the the width of A4. So 1/2 inch strips from, of course, the width, the top of the A4. It means you don't have to cut it down. That's what I've done, because that's now the width of what A4 would be. So press that down, bring in our scoreboard, and give it a little helping hand. So I've gone in and given it a little score at 1/2 inch. Turn it around, because I always prefer just to turn it around, and then the same 1/2 inch. So just bend that back, bend that back. I would have waited maybe about 10 minutes or so before I start to shape this to really let the glue set, but we're just going to go for it now. What we want to do is we want to give that its helping hand and curve it, and then we can bring this in, and then let's bring in glue. And if you really don't want this to move or come away, I would use your glue. And then I'm not going to open that. What I can actually do is I can see where I've got that join, so I can use that as a guide. So if I do the same on that side as a guide. So use bits within your project to help as a guide. I'm just going to press that down. I'm going to press that down. I'm going to turn that around. Or you could do a little pencil mark, pen mark, something like that, just to make sure you're in the centre. Hold that down. And although I used in my one, I used our gold like pearls to act as little rivets. You could actually use split pins if you want to. But then there we go. There we are. Press that down. So then there we go. Once the glue's dried within the hook and loop, you can open and close that to your heart's content. And then you've got your handle as well. But that is how it would look once it's completed. And then by the time you put your little notes, gift cards, seed packets, anything like that in there, then that's going to then, of course, kind of bulk it out within the middle. And there we go. So there we are. I do hope that that is a help to you, because as I said, I know many people as of late have been asking not only for the actual picture of the written instructions, which I will include them, but also I thought it would be a helping hand to do a video, and that's what we're going to do. So thank you very, very much. I hope I didn't confuse you too much with those measurements, but the simple basis of that project is really quite simple, and then you can adapt the mat and layers to it, whichever size that you want. But let me know in the comments if you do try it and you post it on social or our new official Hunkydory Crafts Facebook page. Do tag, of course, Hunkydory, tag me as well. Always lovely to see what you've made. Right, till the next time, we'll see you again. Bye.